Right, there we have it, a 32-run victory for South Africa. It has been a long day of cricket. A quick recap from the beginning. Both teams revealed lineups that had a few changes within them. South Africa then were bowling first. My bad, they were batting first, and Pakistan won the toss. It chose to bowl, but we just see that a lot of repeats from the time before, and when Pakistan sort of come out to bat, there were no real partnerships. The top order didn't really click. Javeria had a good small knock there, but we didn't really see any time in the game where Pakistan was really in it. But having said that, we could never really say that they were out of it. So it was an interesting innings in that aspect. And joining me again are Claire, Mark, and Ananya to break down the second innings of the third and final ODI of this series. Now, just starting off, Mark, your initial thoughts on the second innings. You mentioned that it could be really dragged down and could feel like they were chasing 400 runs and not just 200. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, again, another poor start at the top, 2 for 12, chasing a low total. And then South Africa, I thought, fielded superbly and bowled really well as well, and came up with some very clear game plans. There was a lack of strike rotation, and Kainat Imtiaz didn't really make the most of that opportunity. We saw a couple of cameos from Sijin Nawaz, Diana Baig at the end, but no one really went on and got that big 80 that I was talking about, and bat through right to that 40th over and really shut South Africa out of the game. So I think they'll be a little bit disappointed about this, because that was, as we talked about, more a South African A team that has really comprehensively won this game by 32 runs. So it's a little bit disappointing for Pakistan to walk away from this without sort of the only player really missing is Bismar Maroof, and to come up short, I think in this one is probably a big disappointment for them.
Yeah, and I think as every match progressed, the margin got bigger and bigger, and that's something that needs to be corrected as they move into the other series and coming up at the World Cup as well. Claire, the thoughts on the bowling of South Africa, Shabnam Ismail, Ayabonga Khaka, and Sunil all getting 3 wickets each. What did you make of that?
I thought the bowling was absolutely superb today. I think they, Mark's mentioned it already. They had their sort of game plans for the different players, which they implemented fantastically. And then the cherry on the top for me was they backed that up with really good fielding. And they've been threatening the whole series to sort of have a clinical performance in the field. Yes, we saw Bosch dropped one at sort of like an extra cover position. But in general, I thought they were a lot tidier in the field. I've got a huge smile on my face. I am so glad that Sunil bowled herself through. She bowled her 10 overs. She picked up her 3 wickets. And I think like we saw everything we knew she could deliver, it suddenly came. And it's just amazing with a bit of confidence. That flight that she gets is just fantastic. And as a leg spinner, you need that confidence to give the ball sort of flight. And then the purchase that she got off the wicket was actually incredible. I mean, I really didn't think at times for her to get the ball to turn quite so much. And some of the deliveries, she really got some exaggerated sort of turn off the pitch. So I'm thoroughly happy and thoroughly impressed that she got through her 10 overs. She looked good. She looked confident in the crease. And the rest of the bowlers, backed her up. The only disappointment was a little bit how, Masabata Class started with her 4 wides in her first over. And I think she ended with 6 wides altogether in her sort of bowling innings. But she came back well. So the fighting spirit that she showed to sort of really figure it out. It was interesting for me. I thought at times they might have started Ismail and Klaas on the wrong side of the wicket, bowling from the wrong end with where the wind was coming from. I know some of the commentators also picked up on that. But again, it worked. So it would have been sort of something that Les would have thought about. But I was also really, really happy with her captaincy today as well.
Yeah, and captaincy, and I think South African team performance, because Ananya, we look at the three matches now, and Diana Baig has the most wickets, Alia Riaz has the most runs under the belt, but we have South Africa winning 3 out of 3. So it really shows you that it's a team sport, and at the end of the day, you can't rely on one person to take you home.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the top run getter, top wicket taker were from Pakistan, but I think they were two individuals who stood out for them. No one else from the Pakistan team really chipped in. There was Nidadar, of course, who had a decent series with the bat, but I mean, they weren't able to find. Their top order was in shambles through the 3-match series, and I mean, when you're 2 for 12 or 2 for 20 or 2 for 30, it's really hard to chase down totals above 200. And the fact that they got as close as they did in the first 2 matches was, as we said earlier, down to Nidadar and Alia Riaz. And there were no contributions outside of them. And we saw with South Africa, while their middle order didn't contribute, through in this game, they always found someone like Marizan Kaap stood out in the first 2 games. In this game, you had Trisha Chetty kind of pulling them through. So they always found someone to take that leadership role, whether it was with the bat or with the ball, whereas Pakistan kind of relied too heavily on maybe individuals.
Yeah, and Mark, we see Javeria play up top for the first time in this series. She did see out the initial sort of bowling attack, but do you think that's a place that she should play at more often and not come down at 3 or 4?
Well, I think it is when Bismar's not there now. I think it's becoming pretty obvious that there's just no solution at the top of that order. In T20s, you can get away with a little bit, and maybe Umaima Sahel might open in the T20s, which he's done before. But in this one-day game, I think it's a real gap for them, and they need to try and fill it now. Who they fill it with, who knows? We've given Muniba Ali a go. We've given Javeria Khan a go previously, Aisha. Zaffar's had a go. So everybody's had a go, but no one's been really successful. So that's a real concern moving forward into these World Cup qualifiers as to who is actually going to open the batting, because right now they don't have a settled pair. And perhaps Nahida Khan may have played potentially her last one-day international for Pakistan, because it's just not working with her there either at the moment over an extended period of time. So it's a real problem for them.
Yeah, and we see that the top order, go out to some really good catches and some good containment from the South Africans. Claire, do you just want to tell us a little more about the newcomers in this match, especially Bosch and Brits? Although they didn't contribute with the bat too much, there certainly was like a fielding dimension that they added to the team. There was energy. There was a little bit of miscommunication at the beginning, but just keeping that aside, I think they did make up for it by just patrolling the boundaries really well.
Yeah, look, they're phenomenal athletes, and I think, if you go back a good couple of years in women's cricket history, we didn't see like really good pure athletes coming through. When you look at all international cricket, women's cricket now, you really see fine specimens of athletes on the field. The way they move across the field, they're attacking the ball, they're getting their angles right. They've got big arms, all of that sort of thing. It really does put pressure on the batsmen. They're sort of trying to push for 2 runs, but now, there's no longer sort of 2 runs if you sort of hitting it straight out to the fielder out on the boundary. So I was really happy with the intensity that they brought to the team. As a fielding unit, they also look gelled. They look like they were, you still need to work together as a fielding unit, even though you spread all over the field. And whether you do that through chatting and talking and, lots of clapping and really good positive body language, the South African girls definitely brought that to the fields today. But it didn't help. The Pakistanis really aren't helping themselves. I was looking at sort of the fall of the wickets across the 3 ODIs, and they were 2 for 23, 17 and 12. They were 5 for 78, 73 and 72. And Mark will tell you as a coach, like you just, you might get a lucky win because you're going to have a Diana Baig or someone or Anita Dar get you close right at the end and you just lose by 3. Maybe that, you win by a wicket there. But you can't put yourself in that situation game in and game out and expect to get over the line. It's just not going to happen. South Africa were weak in the first 2 ODIs and that's what let them get so close, especially in the fielding at the end. But at least South Africa were really clinical, and it was good to see them. They're 2-0 up in the series, not to still win it 2-1. For them to now go through and follow through with a 3-0 win kind of just shows a mindset that they need to start and keep on switching on and kind of really go for the jugular, when they're in those critical situations.
Yeah, and I'm assuming now David Hemp has a lot to think about because a lot of things have not gone right, and they for some reason have repeated a few things again and again, hoping and waiting for it to turn out to give some returns, but it just hasn't. So, Ananya, like, what do you think David Hemp is? What is the staff sort of discussing as a unit before going into the T20s as to what needs to change, because they have to self-analyze and kind of do some introspection as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a huge challenge for Pakistan because, like you said earlier, the margins of defeat have just increased by match. And going into the T20 series, like Mark said, they've lost against the South Africa A side, essentially. And that's going to hurt them a lot. And when you think that you can't beat a South African A side, how much harder is it going to be when the likes of Kaap and Dupree come back into the side? Of course, it's a T20 game. It's a shorter format. They're not going to fade away like they do in the field. But I mean, there is so much for them to consider. I mean, we're talking about the fact that their top order has constantly failed. And now the question is, who do they bring in? You look at their squad, you have an Aisha Zafar. But do you want, I think the problem that I see with Pakistan is that you have these players who have been in and around the system like Aisha Zafar, Nahida Khan, Kanat Imtiaz, and you keep going back to the same players. And I think this is an issue that we had in India as well, that we kept going back to Amuna Meshram, Abeda Krishnamurthy. And I think Pakistan are so far haven't been able to find a young or a young core of players who they want to invest in. I think Mark mentioned Muniba Ali as one of them. And I'm sure that she will come good because, a lot of people have been raving about her. So she probably needs a lot more time at the international level to get used to it. But where are these young players coming from? Because right now it feels like Pakistan are just going back to that same pool of players. So, right now they probably have to find a stopgap arrangement. How are they going to get their top order to fire? Do they do that by pushing Javeria Khan up the order? Do they do that by pushing Omema Sohail up the order and then maybe shifting Alia Riaz and Nida Dar further up because they aren't able to find the runs with the other batters? And I think it's also about maybe the senior players we saw in South Africa. It was the senior players who were stepping up when required, whether it was Kaap with the bat, whether it was Ismail today. We spoke about how South Africa could possibly, have a slightly weakened attack today, but it was Ismail who kind of gave South Africa the advantage with the new ball. So, I think Javeria Khan, what if Nahida Khan gets a game, Alia Riaz, Nida Dar will have to somehow find a way to get these younger players to step up because it's going to be really difficult. It is a shorter format and hopefully, Pakistan are a very dangerous T20 team. So hopefully they're able to find their mojo there.
Yeah, and looking forward to the ODI World Cup next year. It's good to see that Pakistan are now going to Zimbabwe after the South Africa tour to get some more games under their belt. And at the same time, looking at the South African squad, we spoke about getting new players in, because you learn your cricket in the middle. I think it's been said a lot of times before. So it's crucial for both sides to just get that experience for the youngsters heading into a World Cup where you need to have good bench strength and plan everything that could possibly go wrong. So just looking at this series as a whole, let's just take a step back and look at these three matches one after the other. Mark, if you just want to kick us off with what are the areas of concern for Pakistan? I think we've established in each sort of match, there are things that are getting repeated every time, but as a sort of just a bigger picture, what is the key focus area that they need to improve on?
Oh, look, I think we've just mentioned it. I think that top order needs to be sorted out. And my disappointment is that Muniba's paid the price here. She is the future. And I would have been probably pushing really hard for her to have another game. And perhaps Nahida Khan was the one that took a rest here. At 34 or 35, I think Nahida is now. And that's no disrespect for her. She's been a fantastic player. But I think this was a real opportunity to give Muniba another go at that top level. And perhaps Nahida missed out because Muniba's going to be the future. And then I think they've got Bismar, I'm not sure where she's at, whether she's coming back. Hopefully she is. But I think if she's out of the picture for whatever reason, there's a real gap of experience in there that they're going to have to fill. And I'm not sure whether they actually know who they're going to fill it with. So that middle order becomes a real worry. And, we all know in cricket that, 1 in 3 innings, you're probably going to miss out. And today was the day that Dar missed out, and Alia, I didn't think, played as well as she did, and that just happens in cricket. So there becomes a real concern if you're just relying on 2 people. And I think in these first 2, we've relied on Nida and Alia to get us close. And today just didn't happen to be their day, and you saw the drop away, and we didn't really get that. We were never. Once Dar went out and Nida wasn't and Alia wasn't in the groove, it was a real issue for us, and we didn't really get close in the end.
Yeah, and you mentioned Bisma, and I think we've mentioned her over and over again, but what is it like, just for everyone watching, what is it that she brings and why is it so vital? Because at the end of the day, she is just one player, right? And there is a chance that she gets injured and there have to be stopgap solutions. There have to be people coming in after her. So what is it that she brings that we need to get the youngsters to work on and fill that gap eventually?
Well, I think she's well aware of her game now. She knows her strengths, she knows her weaknesses. She brings that real leadership and that experience of leadership, which I don't think Javeria has. Javeria is an experienced international player, but we talked about it before. She's not really a very experienced international captain. So that's a real issue, whereas Bismar is an experienced player who is becoming a very experienced international captain. So the quicker she returns, the better, I think, for Pakistan, because they really need her to do 2 things. A, captain the team with real leadership, and B, really fill that space in at number 4 there.
Yeah, and if they, just on that last note, you sort of mentioned that we need to get younger players, and I think we've established that. Do you know, can you tell us a little bit about anyone coming through the ranks and what sort of area we are focusing on and getting the Pakistani youngsters into the squad?
Oh, look, there's a couple of young players back there that were probably knocking on the door, and I think now is the time possibly to bring those players in. But they're going to come into a group where they haven't had a lot of international experience, because Pakistan has been in the past very poor with its A program. There's been no A program at all, and there's barely an under-19 program running as well. So they're making, we talked about it, they're making that jump from here, really big jump into that international team without much exposure at that next level down. So that's the concern for me moving forward. And I think we saw a little bit of South Africa as well, with Bosch and Brits. They just looked a little bit at sea. So those A programs for these countries, as we've talked about, is vitally important.
Right. So moving on to, again, Claire, just looking at the bigger picture and the 3 matches that are gone on, what are the areas of concern for South Africa and something that they have to work on, at least before the World Cup coming up next year?
So sort of almost similar to what Mark has said with Pakistan, I think our top order batsmen, we've got some real talented batsmen in there. And I really would like seeing them convert their scores into bigger scores. I think that's absolutely critical. At international cricket, it's an absolute crime to be getting to your 20s, 30s, and even 40s and then going out. And the batsmen have the skill to convert into bigger skills. So that for me is one thing that I really, really would like to see. I really like the mindset of Hilton Naring and the fact that he gave Britt and Bosch a run in today's game. Just shows where he's trying to go with the future of sort of momentum Proteas, and how he feels the development should happen. So to talk to sort of the South African A program, Cricket South Africa has got a lot better in the last few years in helping those players, giving them opportunities. We're seeing a lot of games against an emerging South Africa or a South Africa A side. Our under-19 program is really well set, and we're producing some very good youngsters. And even so now, they're focusing on an under-16 age group. And traditionally in South Africa, we just kind of had these juniors, and they were like sort of mini cricket and everything was happening. And then it was sort of the jump into sort of hardball under 19 cricket. So we're seeing more of a step-by-step process from a South African perspective, and it is important to get that experience. And that's probably my next point is we sort of saw today what happened where we don't have a Cup, we don't have a Danae, we don't have a Chloe Tyron, you take Mignon out of the side, you get one more injury and you're literally down 5 core players. And I think that is where Hilton is trying to build to make sure that there is really a competitive spirit, a healthy competitive spirit within the squad. So him and his staff have to put their thinking caps on when they are trying to pick the first 11. And I'm not saying that it has to be an ugliness within the squad, but that healthy competition where people are pushing each other for places. Because then you can make really technical decisions. You can kind of say, well, what is the pitch going to bring to us? Or now is it player A or is it player B? But I think often now it's just, okay, well, it has to be player A because player B is not strong enough. Or who are we playing against? What is the opposition that we are playing against? Do we go with bowler C or bowler D? But you can start having those really in-depth technical conversations and debates when you have, call it 15, 16, 17, or 20 fantastic players that all can compete and give each other a really good run within the squad. So that would be my second point. And then the third point is that I am glad to see our fielding is a lot better. It was starting to become a concern for me. I still, I don't know if I'll ever be happy, but I'm still not quite happy. There were, especially at the end, there were a few runouts that I think we should be hitting the stumps. And so I think from a strength and conditioning perspective and fielding side, they need to be asking themselves the question, are they in a solid base when they're picking up the ball? I know it can't always be perfect, and I know you can't always be shying at the stumps from a stable position, but are we assisting the players in getting into those correct positions, or are they having to throw off balance all the time? The catching was a lot better, but I still think we're missing one opportunity or two opportunities every single game in runouts. And when you play against the top opposition in the world, and I've said this a few times this series, that is an opportunity. And you run out in Elise Perry when she's flying on 40 and no one sort of saw where that ball came from, or that is match changing sort of opportunities. And we don't want to be missing out on those. We want to be like capitalizing on those opportunities.
I think that very well sums up the entire sort of ODI series so far. So I'm excited to move on to our next segment, which is the yay or nay segment. I'm sure you guys know how it works, so I won't take too much time explaining it. Ananya, why don't you kick us off? A yay moment from the third ODI and then a nay moment.
Well, my yay moment, I suppose, would be Laura Wilfart's cover drives. I mean, I don't think if anyone can ever get enough of them. Yeah, I thought she batted beautifully, and it was great to see her, I guess, get a 50. She wasn't able to convert it, yes, but I really enjoyed the way she played, and especially the way she kind of lifted her strike rate after Liz Ali got out. I thought that was really good to watch. My nay moment is connected with the same thing. I was very annoyed with the fact that Pakistan just kept feeding her those cover drives. They didn't try and bowl straighter lines. They just kept bowling in that off stump and outside off stump channel, and it was like they just wanted to watch it like us fans. So yeah, that was something that really annoyed me.
But that's interesting that both your yay and nay moments are related to the exact same event. That's I think that's a first. Mark, what about you?
Look, my yay moment is probably Diana Baig's performance, her personal best bowling performance today, career best. And just the way that she plays the game. I think she's had a fantastic series. But again, she was brilliant today. Tried really hard with the bat right to the bitter end. I think she might have got 20 off 20 or whatever it might have been. Bowled really well and fielded as she always does. So that's my yay moment. My nay moment at the moment is the Pakistan top order and the continued issues that we have with it. So that's me.
Claire, for you, your yay moment was Marizan Cap in the last two ODIs. That can't be the case today. So what have you gone with?
You've called me out. No, I'll have to go with Sunay Liss's bowling performance. I'm so glad that she sort of And I want to say getting back in the rhythm, but I totally understand. I used to dabble with a bit of leggies, and they're probably the hardest skill to master in cricket. So it's something you're always striving for and you're always working at. But she just looked so good when she was approaching the crease and the way she was going through the crease. So I'm really happy with her from a bowling perspective, as well as her captaincy. There was a lot better body language, and something simple as body language can make a big difference. So the positivity and the control she had with her bowlers and with her fielding positions really, really, really impressed me. My name moment, I'm going to be a bit pedantic, but it was sort of our extras that we conceded as a bowling unit. In general, I was happy with how we bowled, but Klaas's sort of her wides up front, it's sinful at this level to be sort of when your extra column is getting into the double figures, coupled with the missed runouts. I still feel that is we need to just improve on those things.
Yeah, I mean, the extras are just a simple way of keeping the pressure on the batters in the middle. All right, I'm going to put you all on the spot once again. So since we finished the ODI series, I would like each one of you to pick the player of the series, your choice, and obviously justify it as well. Ananya, we'll start off with you once again.
Yeah, this is going to be really difficult because, I mean, logically you would want the player of the series, or you'd think the player of the series should be from a team that won the series. But yeah, I think Mark mentioned it, Diana Baig, the way she plays the game, I think the way she played throughout this series was, it was a joy to watch. The fight she showed, I think she showed her teammates how they should approach this game, whether it's with the bat or with the ball. I think she was exceptional, top wicket taker, and she got a couple of useful innings at the lower order and actually gave her side a chance to win both games. So yeah, Diana Baig, I think, would be my player of the series. A close second would be Alia Riaz, but yeah, I think Alia Riaz kind of faded off in the last game, so I'd give it to Diana Baig.
Okay, Mark, your go, and I'm hoping you're not going to pick the same one as Ananya.
I am. I'm sorry. Yeah, for me, look, I think she's been brilliant, and I think it's been covered. She probably deserves it, and as we talked about, you probably don't give it to the losing side, but on this occasion, I think she's done enough, particularly with that little knock that she had at the end of today's game. I think she's probably just snuck in there. All round brilliant in the field, bowling today outstanding, and that little knock at the end there probably just has sealed it for me.
Okay, so we've got 2 for Diana Baig. Claire, no pressure on you at all.
Well, I can't agree with them, so I better not. So I'll keep you happy, and I'll make sure I don't pick Diana Baig. Although I do agree, I think she's had a fantastic series. So I will put that on record, please. Yeah. So I mean, if I had to go with the South African, obviously just with them winning the series 3-0, not that I believe personally it ever has to go that route. I would. It's a tough one. I think Cup as a second, I would Wolfhard and Cup as in second place. I would probably have picked those two. I think with today's performance, I'd actually probably now go with Shubnam Ismail. I think with not having Cup and not having Mignon in the team today, there would have been a lot of pressure on her. She kind of had to lead the attack, make sure something happened. And she did exactly that. In her first 3 overs, I think she picked up the 2 wickets. So I think if I had a gun to my head, I would go with Shubs for the series, just considering she also played all 3 games. Yeah.
All right, Ananya, I can see you're pretty happy with Team Pacer.
Pacer.
Because we have Diana and Shubnam. I think it's pretty sort of unanimous that Diana Baig is the Women's Cricket Zone player of the series, at least for the ODIs. Just before we wrap up, a quick thought on the T20 series coming up. I know we do have a preview day after tomorrow at 7 p.m. IST on this channel itself. But Mark, if you just want to tell us a little bit about what we can expect as a Pakistani T20 squad coming out in a couple of days.
Well, I think there'll definitely be changes. I would say that Aisha Zafar will play. I think Anam is going to obviously be a key for that in terms of the ball and opening up with the ball in the T20s. but I worry because I don't think that we're going in with enough batting confidence behind us, and we really don't have big hitters in the team. We've probably only got two, and maybe Zaffa has the potential and Umar Sahel to split fields, but it worries me where we're at with our T20 game, because I just don't know whether we've got the batting confidence, as I've said, to go in really confident about making 150, and knowing that Wolvart and Lee and Cap have all got a lot of batting power. So that's a concern for me.
Yeah, hopefully you're proven wrong within the coming matches. That'll be a sight to see for sure. Claire, just quick thoughts on the South African T20 squad coming up. We've seen strong performances in the ODIs, places where there can be improvements, but as a T20 unit, what are the strengths of the squad?
Well, I definitely think the batting up front, Mark touched on it. They've got some very, very long hitters in the squad. Never mind the three players that we just heard of. Nadine de Klerk can also hit it very long. Laura Goodall, when she wants to get going on it, can also hit it very long. So, in general, we've got some good batters that can hit a very, very long ball. So I'm probably not too concerned from a batting perspective. My area of interest and what I'm going to look really closely at this T20 series is the bowling skills. How we are able to adapt our bowling skills, and the plans that we can put in place for different batsmen, and then how the bowlers adapt to those plans. So I think from a bowling unit, we're going to need to do a lot of work, and make sure that we are very accurate with mixing it up with some good slow balls. We saw in particular Ayabonga Kaka bowl some beautiful slow balls today. So hopefully she's given an opportunity to just really show that skill coming through.
Many times T20s are just associated with power hitting and a lot of runs scored, but obviously there is an entire aspect of bowling and a low scoring game to it as well. Ananya, before we wrap up, your thoughts on what you want to see from the T20 matches coming up?
I think both Mark and Claire touched on things, but I from a Pakistan point of view, I think I would like to see them plan a little better. I think that's where they were exposed in this ODI series. We saw that South Africa planned, at least with the ball, they knew what their plans were against the top order, and they executed them. And I think that's why Pakistan really floundered with the bat. I think from that perspective, I'd like to see them maybe come in with better plans to the top order, because they know who they're going to come up against. They know what they play like, and I guess it's just about finding ways to stop that. And this is an issue that we've seen with Pakistan over the last few years, that as soon as the pressure is on them, they kind of they fall apart from the seams. So I'd like to see them, more of them, show the fight that Diana Begg has showed. They've shown it in bits and spurts, but I think if we can see more consistency in that, it would be really nice.
Yeah, you were right. We've seen like a lot of heart in some of the performances, but not to a prolonged period where they can take the game with them. So hopefully we do see that. And I think with that, that's a wrap of the post-match segment of the third ODI. Hopefully we've given you an idea of the entire ODI series. What are the takeaways? What are the areas of concerns for both the teams? Just a quick mention that day after tomorrow at 7 p.m. IST will be a proper preview of the T20 series. So you make sure you catch that on the Women's Cricket Zone channel. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Outside View Live.